So before we start this meeting, we're going to swear Miss Allison Ryan in. You want to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Allison Ryan,
I, Allison Ryan,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the laws and ordinances of the City of Seldovia,
and the laws and ordinances of the City of Seldovia,
State of Alaska,
State of Alaska,
and that I will faithfully and honestly
and that I will faithfully and honestly
perform the duties of the office of the Planning Commission of the City of Seldovia.
perform the duties of the office of the Planning Commission of the City of Seldovia.
Congratulations.
All right, thank you.
We'll have you sign.
And with that, I will call to order the Seldovia Planning Commission regular meeting for Wednesday, May 5th, 2021 at 6:11 p.m. Roll call, please.
I apologize, Ms. Ryan, I have you up first. So if it's a yay or nay or here for roll call, if or whatever works best for you in the positive or negative, but it's going to start with Ms. Ryan.
Present?
Yeah, but you want to turn on your mic so that they can hear.
All right, I'm here.
Okay. Mr. Forsberg,
Here.
Ms. Gruber,
Here.
and Madam Chair, Ms. Carluccio.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Item C is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
I guess I'll second, but I don't have the agenda.
Kathleen, do you want to second that?
Somehow lost you guys, the video. But I moved to second.
Is there
Oh,
any
there you are.
discussion?
Okay.
Are we back?
Yes.
Any discussion on the agenda? Roll call, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Item D, approval of minutes from the April 7th, 2021 meeting.
What's the question? Are we still considering what, the site?
No, we are, we are on the minutes for approval. I need a motion to approve.
Oh. Move to approve. She'll need a second.
I second.
Okay, any discussion? I do have some discussion or some comments. When we were discussing the tower, under item C, on page 2, there were some questions that were asked, and I don't know if those were additional questions into what Mr. Brecky answered, because it seems like in reading over the minutes, he answered some of the answers to some of the questions are above where his comments and Steve Hedges' comments are. And so I don't know if we just re-ask the same questions or if in fact those questions kind of belong with their comments. I'm not sure. I don't remember. And also the other thing that I guess I would like the clerk to check on is on item G1, the preliminary replat. The clerk gave a report, but I'm curious to see which of the questions, if any, were answered in that report. Because I know we had a number of questions, and that's why we asked for the plat to be resubmitted with the buildings on it and utilities marked on it. And so I think that should be noted in the minutes. And so, since the minutes may need to be amended, I think we need to postpone approval until we get that information. So now just a clarification on procedure. We make a motion to postpone till the next meeting. And then we go back, and on the motion to approve, the vote would be no. I need a motion to postpone the approval of the minutes until the next meeting. All I need from you is so moved.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And a vote, please. I'm sorry, was there any other discussion on the minutes?
No.
Okay. Vote, please.
Miss Ryan,
I guess that's,
Yes.
yeah, affirmative. Yes.
Mr. Forsberg,
Yes.
Miss Gruber,
Yes.
Miss Carluccio.
Yes. And now back to the main motion to approve the minutes. The vote should be no, since we're going to postpone.
Right.
But we have to go back to the main motion and vote on it.
So you're gonna get a hold of these people that you have a question about, or how's that?
No, Heidi's gonna review the minutes on the tape
Oh,
and,
what they said at that time.
yes,
Okay, I got you.
So roll call vote for the main motion for the approval of the minutes. Ms. Ryan,
Not approved.
Mr. Forsberg,
No,
Ms. Gruber,
Nay.
and Ms. Carluccio.
no. Item E, public comments regarding items not on the agenda. There is no one here. Is there anyone from the public online?
There is not, Madam Chair.
So we will move on to item F, public hearing prior notice. That's none. G, consideration of site plans, none. And now to item H, commission business. City of Seldovia 2014 Comprehensive Plan Review, economy section. Presentation by staff, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Rachel Friedlander. I'm the City of Seldovia's newest city manager. I've been here for almost 5 months. It's very nice to be here in attendance to see what City Clerk Gagel helps the city accomplish in supporting the Planning Commission at your meeting. And something that the Seldovia City Council passed a resolution on was to ask the Planning Commission to do a review of the comprehensive plan. According to Seldovia City Code, it's one of the responsibilities of the commission. And so I have a PowerPoint presentation prepared for your consideration. And it's specifically regarding the economy section. So I'm going to pull open Zoom so I can share my screen. And I can't remember how many sections of the comprehensive plan there are. It's either 5 or 6. And so we're going to be starting with economy. And this was included in your packet. So first, the agenda for tonight. We're going to review the comprehensive plan economy goals. We're then going to evaluate how these goals compare to relevant actions, policies, synergies, and contingencies. So you'll notice that in the comprehensive plan, all the goals that are underneath the economy section, they have these letters like A1, S1, P1, and those are tangible tasks the city could complete in order to meet the objective of that goal. So we're going to look at those and how it relates to the goal itself. And then the Planning Commission members are going to grade the city on those goals. And then we can have brief discussion. And then we're going to compile what the Planning Commission's comments were on the economy section. So we'll bundle that up in a nice bow for council's consideration at a later date. And then we'll move on to the next section, which is transportation at your next meeting. So that's the agenda for tonight and through this process over the next few months. And then I just wanted to share with the Planning Commissioners the role of staff. We are here to help facilitate the Planning Commission's evaluation of the 2014 Comprehensive Plan by presenting you with information that shows how the city has done or hasn't done in terms of the goals. And then please keep in mind that the information that we present to you isn't all encompassing. Some of you may have been with the city much longer than your new city manager. And so there could be items where you're like, oh, well, we could have included that in the evaluation of that goal, and it just wasn't listed. So that's the format for tonight. And then in terms of the review of the comprehensive plan, we're operating under the assumption that this 2014 comprehensive plan has not been reviewed since its adoption. So for 7 years. So use that as your time frame to evaluate the success of the city in meeting the goals or giving us more homework because we still have some work to do. And then ultimately, it's the goal for a planning commissioner or the full commission to come to the Seldovia City Council meeting in September to share with them your findings. And then every year, this can be a process where the planning commission reviews the comprehensive plan so that way we don't get so far behind, if this indeed is the first review of the comprehensive plan since its adoption. Okay, so on to tonight. In your packet for the economy section, you have a rubric, so to speak, and the instructions on the rubric are: please rank each goal's focus area components on a scale of 0 to 5, with 0 meaning no work has been done, no progress made, and 5 meaning this focus area has been accomplished / significant progress made. And then your ranking should be based on the evidence that staff has compiled for your consideration. And you can take notes as we go through, but basically the format is you have your rubric. We're going to take it one goal at a time for the economy section. Once we present to you all the evidence for that goal, we'll then ask you to take 3 minutes to rank the components of that goal, and then we can have brief discussion before moving on to the next goal. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect. So you have your rubrics ready?
If you need an extra rubric, we did print and bring extras.
Oh, that's your rubric, right?
And they're in your packet too.
It's on page 16 in your packet.
What's that?
The rubric is on page 16.
Yep, I got it. I got it here.
All right. The show will begin. So the first goal for the economy section is sustain a prosperous fishing fleet. And so what I did is I looked at all of the actions, contingencies, synergies, and what the other letter was. And I put together evidence to show you how the city's done on this in this regard for the past 7 years. So our municipal dock is still in a condition that can support the ferry's use. Our small boat harbor design happened. We got $1 million from DOT and public facilities and $1 million from the Denali Commission. And then the Denali Commission actually improved part of our harbor. So that was a huge success that happened within the past 7 years. We continue to maintain boat haul out services. We constructed a value-added building that was supposed to assist in seafood processing. However, it's unfinished and there's no tenant. Fuel sales are not city-run, but the city did renegotiate a lease with Seldovia Fuel and Lube. And there's no significant maintenance that has been done on the city roads.
On the what?
On city roads. We haven't done any maintenance on our city roads. That was one of the actions that the comp plan called out for sustaining a prosperous fishing fleet. We are planning on working on a city asset use / management / disposal guidelines through the creation and adoption of a first ever land use management plan. We do not have an active program to reduce environmental risk. However, significant headway was made in removing derelict vessels in 2019. The city continues to advocate for the ferry system, and there's been discussion over a new freight passenger vessel in Kachemak Bay within the past 7 years. The city does not have a collaborative economic strategy in place with local groups and residents. The city could improve its relationship to the NOAA lab. The city has become a sustaining member of SOS and intends to have an oil spill response training. The city has not worked on a waterfront truck route and secondary airport route. And the city still maintains Jackaloff Dock with city limits revenue, which means the harbor subsidizes Jackaloff Dock. And council has moved forward with efforts to secure a Tidelands lease so Jackaloff Dock can collect revenue. So when looking at that goal and the comprehensive plan, it called out these contingencies, synergies, I can't remember what the P means, and the actions to comprise that goal. And so we just went through them, and now planning commissioners are going to take 3 minutes to rank each section of this goal on a scale of 0 to 5 for how we've done based on that evidence we've presented. So take 3 minutes to give your score, and then we can read the scores out loud once you're done.
I have a question regarding the Jackaloff Bay, the site, the dock there is, so that's a city facility?
Through the chair, yes, the city owns Jackaloff Dock. We were deeded it by the state, but we do not own or lease the tidelands that are above it. Those are leased by a private owner.
Thank you.
All right, it's been 3 minutes. Can we have each commissioner please share how they ranked each facet of this goal? You could even just state the numbers in order from top to bottom, and then we can have a discussion if the commissioners have comments on this topic.
I gave it a 3, 4, and another 4.
Kathleen,
I gave it a 2, a 3, and a 1.
Allison,
I had 3, 4, and 3.
and I rated it 3, 3, and 2.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the commissioners on this goal?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Aye.
Kathleen.
Again, and these are not supposed to be harsh, but the city dock where the ferry docks, that is not well maintained. I remember being a line handler there, and it's scary to work on that dock, honestly. It gets very slippery. There's wood, there's metal, there's cement, there's pilings underneath the water, so you have to be careful where you drop line, otherwise it'll get stuck, which means sometimes you're having to lean far over where those nets and that metal is just to make sure your line doesn't get stuck. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on that dock. I understand that that's a lot of money that as the city probably doesn't have. But as someone who had worked on it, it was frightening to work on it. I know that the value added building was built, I know, I know walking past there, I noticed like the lights flickering on and off randomly. There's obviously, it needs quite a bit of work still. And I think that to get someone in there, it has to be, they're not going to want to do a lot of work on it. So I think that getting that place finished and usable for a business should be definitely looked at. Again, I know that a bunch of cities right now don't have the money. I mean, the pandemic is still going. So I'm not trying to be harsh, but I'm just saying, like, there hasn't been a lot of work on it. I can't remember the last time that the city dock had any major overhaul at all. I know that local fishermen paid to have the nets put on the city dock, which was nice working there, because otherwise there would have just been a massive, like 2 or 3 foot gap between the metal bumpers and the concrete dock. And sometimes things did get stuck on those metal bumpers and you just had to reach over and push and hope that you fell in the net. So again, that's why I did kind of rate rather harshly, because as much as I appreciate the massive job and the improvements they did on the harbor, the city dock is frightening.
Roger?
Will that dock, does the state help on that? Keeping that maintained? Or
No.
They don't, huh?
No.
Through the chair, the state, we receive funding from the state by way of the ferry. So we have a contract in place that whenever the ferry uses the dock, they have to pay the city a certain amount of fees, and the state does inspect the dock. I believe the last inspection that we could find on file was 2013. So they come and they tell us whether or not it's safe for, I'm assuming, passengers as well as their vessel.
I see. Is there any interest in that processing plant? Anybody question or wanting to put a business of some kind or in there?
Through the chair, we haven't been actively advertising it. I'm not sure when the last time was that the city put that out as an opportunity. It's definitely been on the back of my mind of a potential public-private partnership where someone could have for example, a reduced lease rate in exchange for actually getting that building built up to code and finishing the interior. So it is something that is very much present on council members' minds, the community's mind, and my mind, and needing to think through that building, because it is currently used for storage for city items, and it would be amazing to have a tenant use it. But however, we got the funding for that building through grants, and so we have to have the use of the building comply with the terms of the grant, which was value added for like seafood processing and ice.
As far as the fishing, that's all going to depend on the future. As you know, it seems like the fish are dwindling out. You know, I mean, they're shutting pieces of Cook Inlet down. You know, or trying to anyway. I mean, it's definitely going to be a problem if there ain't no fish left. And what's that secondary route for is that to go around the slough for the airport?
Through the chair, what was your question?
It said a secondary route to go to the airport.
Oh yes, I thought that was interesting too. The waterfront truck route and secondary airport route. It's explained more in the comprehensive plan. That was the first that I had heard of it, was reviewing the comp plan. But as far as I know, the city hasn't made any headway on that.
Right. bunch of private property all along there too, isn't it? So, yeah.
I think part of that, Roger, was a couple of things in that having the trucks go through the main roads in town was not conducive to tourism.
Oh, yeah.
And also, a lot of dust, a lot of dirt. And there was some discussion about having an alternate route. And the other thing is, in the case of a tsunami or a warning like that, where the bridge went out, if the bridge went out, how are they gonna get into town? Because there is no alternate route.
So another solution for that dust would be blacktop the whole city, huh?
Well,
That'd be nice.
you can look at the cement or blacktop roads now, and they're all dirty and dusty.
Right.
Anyhow, let's not get off the subject. We're talking about the economy of Seldovia. Allison, and did you have any more to say, Roger?
No, I got it.
Allison?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say, just being so new here. So I'm more gonna learn and listen, I think, for the most part.
So I just wanted to say that the reason why I gave my grades was I just don't see where the city has done anything more than average as far as leveraging the marine environment that we have. And I know that they've done some work on the dock. I mean, you indicated that we had over this time period $2 million to fix up the dock, but I don't know if we've done anything for the harbor's navigatability. I don't think we've done any dredging, and I do know that especially at low tide, especially the boats, I think on some of the fingers are almost bound, they're like landlocked during low tide. And I know that there have even been times when the ferries had to change its schedule to accommodate some of the lower tides because they couldn't turn their boat around. And the lower grade on a range of services to support commercial fishing, we still don't have an ice plant. And as far as these boats, I don't know if they use diesel or gasoline, but can they buy it at a decent rate? I mean, if they're going to go to Homer to get their diesel, then they're going to get their ice there too. And so I know we do some haul out, and we've got some grids there where some of the commercial fishing can pull their boats out on high tide. But other than that, I mean, we don't support anybody in town or have anybody in town that can do repair on boats. So I think we've really fallen down there as far as the commercial fishing fleet. Any other comments?
What is the status of the water now? The water at the city for the boats? Does anybody know?
Through the chair, Commissioner Gruber, can you explain a little bit more what you're asking about?
I knew a few years back there was an issue with the ferry and the fishing boats being able to get their water. I was wondering if that was resolved.
Oh, okay. Yes, the water does work at the municipal dock. You can get water from the dock.
Okay.
All right.
I think we're ready to move on to goal 2.
All right. Goal 2. Goal 2 has a focus area, increase the number and quality of year-round employment. So the city continues to maintain boat haul out services. There could be consideration of leasing out the boat haul out in conjunction with the value added building to increase economic development in Seldovia. The value added building was constructed, however, it's unfinished and no tenant secured. Fuel sales are not city run, but the city did renegotiate the lease with Seldovia Fuel and Lube. The city has not adopted a variable property tax rate structure for businesses and residents. The city has supported the chamber for marketing, however, no comprehensive tourism strategy has been developed. The city does not have a collaborative economic strategy in place with local groups and residents. The city is working to improve state-of-the-art telecommunications for Seldovia in partnership with SVT, and council approved the CUP for Vertical Bridges Tower recently. The city could improve its relationship to the NOAA lab. The city still needs to explore win-win projects for creating new forms of housing in the area, meaning we haven't made any progress on that. And now we are on to ranking the goal number 2. Based on the 3 facets you see below, using 0 for nothing's been done to 5, we've accomplished that goal. And I'd be happy to go back to any slide Commissioner would want to see that we just covered, if that would be helpful.
Would you mind, Rachel, putting the first slide back? Thank you.
And then Commissioner Gruber, I'll just move it to the second slide in case that's helpful too.
Thank you.
All right, it's been 3 minutes. Ready when you are, commissioners, to hear your scores of how we've done on this goal.
Kathleen?
I did 2, 2, and 3.
Roger?
I did 3, 3, and 2.
Allison?
I gave everyone a 2.
And I did 1, 0, 0.
Rough crowd.
All right, what are your comments on goal number
So-
2?
Kathleen?
I think it was referring to, I think this is probably P5, and that's about the tax, the property tax on businesses versus residents. And I didn't know if that included utility taxes, because I know that a lot of restaurants or hotels, anyone doing a hostel or anything, they have to pay. We don't have metered water, which I understand has been an issue with the city. The city's tried to get it. They voted it down by the public. But in the winter, especially, businesses are having to pay per room, even if the room is not rented. So they're not actually using that water. And it's a massive cost for businesses that isn't, they're already struggling because it's winter, there's no tourists. And so then they're having to pay these massive fees, which is very, I think, hostile to a business, because they can't keep their head above water, and it's not going to inspire new business, because people are going to look at that and say, I just can't afford it. There's a few things like the utilities, the power out, the issue with HEA, businesses, the constant power outages, the brownouts, businesses are losing freezers, they're losing microwaves, they're losing the things that they need, the computers even, and that's not just businesses, but residents as well. It's costing the people of Seldovia massive amounts of money in having to buy these new appliances, get them here. That's a big headache. And HEA is not really taking responsibility for what their power outages are killing. And so they're not paying you back for having to buy a new freezer, which is a huge drain on businesses. They're constantly having to replace their appliances. That's a little ridiculous. I know that that's not really the city's fault, but I am wondering if there's something the city could do to get HEA to have a better system in place for our power. As a person who was going to school online, again, HEA is, you can't miss a week of school. And if we're trying to inspire people to move to Seldovia and work online, they can't miss a week of work if they don't have power to their electronics so that they can do their job. So I think that the utilities have a very negative effect on residents. Also, I know the negative effects to tourism. We don't have a Parks and Rec in the city. And there's, we don't have, I know the city did get dog poop, trash cans and bags, but nobody was emptying them. The bags weren't being replenished very often. There's not a lot of trash can. I mean, even in the winter, we need trash cans around. That I think that does have a negative effect on tourism. It looks dirty. I mean, even me last night, I picked up my dog poo and I had to carry that bag throughout my entire walk because I couldn't find a trash can anywhere. And so then people aren't going to pick up their dog poo and it's going to look gross and trashy around town. Yeah, and there's not a lot of clear walkways. I know that we have a lot of tourists. I know the city had a plan and paid for an architect and had it in place where they were thinking about rebuilding a boardwalk so that there was places for tourists to walk Main Street and some of the town on the boardwalk so they weren't clogging up the roads. I know there hasn't been, I don't know why, but there hasn't been forward movement on that. I don't know if it's a money thing or if it's a approval thing. But yeah, those are just a few things that I think that moving forward, if the city could look at them again, I know pandemic and money and all that. But yeah, that's why I rated the way I did.
Thank you, Kathleen. I wanted to mention that the boardwalk concept along the breakwater was not a city-run thing. It was some of the businesses had gotten together, and it dated way back to when Susan Springer lived here.
Mhm.
And a plan was drawn up, and some of the businesses did support it, and they were trying to elicit donations. But then some of the businesses along the waterfront were not on board. And there's not an easement to put up a boardwalk. And so if everybody doesn't agree to it, you would have a boardwalk going in front of two businesses, and then you'd have a break, and they'd have to come out to the road and then go back to the boardwalk. So I think that although that plan, sounds great, if not everybody's on board, then it's not going to happen. Anyhow, Roger.
I guess what I got is, what I've noticed the last few years, I've been here 7 years now, and we're always late on cleaning up the streets. When they start that ferry, it seems like that's when the wind starts coming up around here too. And I've seen a lot of tourists, you could tell they're not having a good time because they got to battle through that dust and stuff's flying all over the place. So the sooner we get that cleaned up, I reckon there's a time when, is it the state that sends over the sweeper now?
Through the chair, Commissioner, and your last name is Stone? Forsberg, sorry. The state provides their sweeper at no cost to the city, and then we use our manpower to then sweep the roads.
Right.
So we're kind of at the mercy of the state as to when they have the sweeper available for our use. And so, I mean, if the city did have funding, which we're in a deficit for fiscal year 22, so added perks such as I learned the other day that we used to apply calcium chloride to our roads in order to harden it. It's about $900 for one of those bags. And it's just an expense that would be nice if the city did have additional revenue, but as it is, we're in a deficit. And so those are the things that unfortunately we currently haven't been budgeting for.
Yeah, I think the sooner you get, it's gotta be done anyway, so that cost is, as far as cleaning up, the sooner you can, put a bug in your ear or something, because they might forget, or sooner the better.
Are we on schedule right now to have the sweeper come over?
Yes, we are on DOT's mind. They're hopefully going to have a sweeper here in a couple weeks, but there's maintenance that's needed on their sweeper. So again, we're at the mercy of the state when it comes to improving our roads. But the city, if you look at the fiscal year 22 proposed budget, we have included an inventory of all the city assets and public facilities and future considerations for the city. And so it could definitely be something that's added on at a later date, possibly budgeting to hire somebody or to lease equipment so that we could sweep the streets beforehand. But we're lucky in that we have a great partnership with the state. And in fact, our former employee works with the state. And so I think we're on their minds a little bit more, I'd like to think, to get the sweeper here.
I did have, this year, it seemed like there's a lot less gravel there was a few years back, it was like a couple inches thick everywhere. But at least there ain't gonna be so much to clean up, I think, this year, as some years.
Any other comments? Allison?
No, I don't really, I'm just, like I said, I'm kind of learning about this. But I can see there's a lot of improvement needed just listening to what was done and what was being proposed.
I think that if you could put your list back up. All those things are kind of negative except for the telecommunications, and that's really just happened recently. But I think that is really one of the good things that's going to help everybody and help the city. Just the fact that people are going to be able to come to town and they're going to be able to use their cell phones. I think that's going to be great. But other than that, it doesn't seem like the city has any kind of an economic strategy. And I remember when the NOAA lab was built out there, and how we were all so excited because there was going to be all this collaboration between the city and NOAA, and that our kids were going to be able to go out there and do some training and learn about the environment of the ocean. And I don't see any of that happening. And of course, the businesses were in town were kind of excited too, because they thought they were going to be getting a lot of business out of NOAA. And I haven't seen that happening either. There's definitely a housing shortage in town. And I really don't know or how to suggest the city move forward in that area with getting new forms of housing. If you'd go to the next slide, please. As far as the value-added building, I know that some work was being done, or the Denali Commission was being contacted to see if there's any way that we could change some of the requirements for that building. Has that moved forward, or are we're stuck now with a building that eventually is going to rot and fall down because we can't get a tenant because it's strictly value added?
Yes, that is the case with that building. And the former city manager of Seldovia and current KPED executive director, Tim Dillon, has been, I've been in conversation with him about this building. But yes, if we use it for anything other than what its proposed use was, the city might possibly have to buy that building or pay back the construction of that building.
Could possibly, because it has to do with fishing and marine, correct?
Value added.
Yeah, but it has to either be with the ice packing or the fishing industry, correct? Like cannery.
Yeah, seafood processing was one of the uses that was attached to it, as well as ice, being an ice house.
Is there any way that there could be a partnership there between NOAA and the city, because they do a lot of marine stuff? That's what they do. And is there any way that it could be targeted to them for marine use?
I'm not sure, Commissioner, but we could look into it.
Just because they're already established here, they have a lot of knowledge of the water and what it needs and what it could support, that they might have an idea of, and that would bring them into town. So often I talk to people and they say, oh yeah, I was just in Seldovia, I was out at the NOAA bunkhouses. They never came into town. And so I think that's why the businesses are not getting that boost from these people, because there's no reason for them to come into town. They have a place to live there. They bring their own food over. They're just not coming in. And maybe if there is a way to get them into town, then we might have some overlap there.
So moving down the list, I know that the city renegotiated a lease with Seldovia Fuel and Lube, but is there is there anything in the lease that would keep our fuel costs low?
I'm not sure, Chair. If that is the case, we do have the ability to raise our rent with Seldovia Fuel and Lube in 2024, and we do write letters of support for them to get a loan from the state so that they can buy fuel in bulk, and then that helps keep the cost down. But I don't know if there's a clause in the lease that would put a ceiling on the price per gallon.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know, the next item you have, the variable property tax rate structure. I don't know if that's even within the realm of the city, because we don't do anything with the assessment. The borough does the assessment. So I don't know how we could have a property tax, a variable property tax rate.
I can't remember how it was worded in the comprehensive plan, but it was something like you could delay people paying their property tax. I'm sure there are some creative proposals that the borough has had to entertain before in regards to property tax. And there's also the discussion of senior tax exemptions in that part of the comprehensive plan, and a few other items. But that was the intent of the variable property tax, is trying to reduce some of the required costs that you have to pay right up front, so that people would feel brave enough to start something like a new business when they come to Seldovia.
And I know that the city has spent some money on the chamber's marketing. They've taken out ads in the brochure, and probably in the past, some of the radio ads that we've done. But I don't see right now where the city is really supporting the chamber in any way. It's even hard to get somebody from the city to attend the chamber meetings. And so it seems like it would be a good idea if the chamber and the city were working together instead of at cross purposes. The chamber's trying to increase tourism, trying to do what it can to support the city by bringing more people here so that there's more of a tax base as far as sales tax goes. But the city doesn't seem to be on board with that from where I sit.
I was actually thinking about the chamber and the city, and I think again I mentioned a little bit about a Parks and Rec, which a lot of cities have, and I was wondering if that, like you said, that connection between the city and the chamber, I think if the city were to somehow create a Parks and Rec, that might be the connection. Because like our parks are kind of run almost by volunteerism. The city doesn't really maintain the equipment. They don't do the cleaning of it. They don't, I mean, they pick up the trash and when they install new equipment, but there's no one to like clear the trails. I mean, we kind of rely on people to go in there with their chainsaws and cut down a tree when it falls. There's no set person to say, hey, this board on the bridge is gone, and there's no one to walk the trails, to walk the parks, to keep them clean, to keep the equipment that's in them maintained on a regular basis. It almost seems like things fall apart to the point of danger, and then we figure out a plan at that point, which doesn't, I get, yeah, all the trash, that kind of stuff, it doesn't look good when tourists come through. So I think if we did somehow have someone kind of Parks and Rec through the city, they could work with Chamber and possibly make things a little prettier when people come through. Again, I know that the city is at a deficit and cannot afford right now to hire a Parks and Rec person, but maybe there might be a grant for that somewhere, or might be something to look at in the coming years.
I think right now, there used to be a very active Parks and Rec committee that did a lot of work around town, and it's just seemed to have diminished. I know that Susie Stranick does a lot of work in some of the flower gardens, and thankfully she does, because if she didn't, then we wouldn't even have those pretty areas. But maybe the city should work towards seeing if they can reinstitute an actual Parks and Rec committee that would be the vanguard for taking care of the parks and trails. Any other comments before we move on to goal 3?
I just said that if we're running, it's hard to lower a tax rate if we're running a deficit anyway. You know, I mean, that's going to be hard to do. So find a different.
Yeah, through the chair, if it wasn't for the community assistance program funds that the state gives us annually, we would be withdrawing over $70,000 from our savings, from our Seldovia permanent fund
For this fiscal year?
for the upcoming fiscal year.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it's hard to talk about tax deductions if you're running a deficit.
Mm-hmm. It's hard all around the state, and what the state has been doing with the permanent fund, taking the interest, that's what the city of Seldovia has been doing over the past few years. Moving on. Goal number 3, focus area, develop Seldovia's workforce. So that's the goal we're looking at. So again, one of the actions that this goal had was the boat haul out services. So there could be an opportunity for leasing that to encourage economic development. Again, that building was constructed, however, it's unfinished and there's no tenant. City maintenance is needed for the boardwalk, the historic boardwalk, and there could be discussion, more discussion on how to improve the aesthetic and experience of public right-of-way along the slough. The scenic byway pavilion was constructed and it needs maintenance, and harbor kiosks were installed to support tourism and enhance public use of that area, which hopefully then would also generate jobs. The city could work with the chamber to continue promoting recreational assets like Outside Beach, Wilderness Park, the Otterbahn, and Rocky Ridge trails. Council moved to secure a Tidelands lease with the state for Jackaloff Dock in order to charge fees. Maintenance and repair is needed for the dock, and the parking area is currently under another lease by a private individual. The city could improve supporting and honoring local volunteers through mayoral proclamations, and the proposed fiscal year 22 budget recognizes the volunteer EMS and fire team. The city could explore policies, programs, and design guidelines that protect historic sites and local character. Currently, we do not have something that would do that. The city does not have an active program to reduce environmental risk. However, significant headway was made in removing derelict vessels in 2019. The city works with CIRSA through the SOC, and the police chief wants to increase participation in schools, COVID willing, and the city does sponsor family-friendly events. So Synergy 5 just talked about ways in which the city could have more involvement in education for children. The city has supported the chamber for marketing in the past. However, no comprehensive tourism strategy has been developed. The city does not have a collaborative economic strategy in place with local groups and residents. And the city has worked to improve telecommunications like we just discussed about the CUP approval for vertical bridge. The city could improve its relationship to the NOAA lab, and the city still needs to explore win-win projects for creating new forms of housing in the area. So again, this was looking at how to develop Seldovia's workforce, and those were some responses to the various pieces that make up that focus area. So now we're going to take 3 minutes to rank each section on Seldovia's workforce. All right. If you're ready, commissioners, we're ready to hear your scores for goal number 3.
Okay, this time let's let Roger start.
I give it a 1, 3, and a 2.
Allison?
I did a 2, 0, and 2.
And I did a 2, 1, 1. Kathleen?
I did a 2, 3, 2.
Roger? You want to
Any comments?
give your comment?
Oh, I did have a couple questions about the fish processing building. Value added, does that have to be strictly an ice plant, or can it be both, or just part? I mean, that might, it's gonna be hard to, it's just like these front buildings here, they gotta be part business, and you could have a house in the back or whatever, and all that stuff.
Through the chair, what I'm basing my information on is a memo that former city manager Todd Larson wrote about the value added building, and it has to be for those uses. I don't know if it has to be one or the other or a combination.
Mhm. Okay. That's what all I had.
Allison?
Yeah, I just didn't see anything that had been done for the youth mentoring culture. That's why I gave it a 0. But I haven't really I've looked through this plan. I'm actually wondering, these goals that we're talking about, are they in the plan? Because I haven't seen them stated this way. Goal 3, like just trying to see how this all fits together, and or is this goal that something that just is new?
Through the chair, if you look in the economy section of the comp plan, you'll see all the goals listed there. And it looks like City Clerk Gagel's coming to the rescue.
Okay. Okay, there's economy. Okay. So we just copied these into here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they have their recommendations based on these.
Right.
Views and different items. So that's what she's giving you that's what she's giving you a review of, based on these recommendations for these goals.
Thank you. It seems like a lot of this, I mean, with the tribe being right here, the city and the tribe have to work together on a lot of this stuff. And I can see that maybe that youth mentoring thing happens more with them, with that organization.
And that's what the SOC is for too, I believe, isn't it? More or less.
And I don't know, there was another acronym, that SRSA or something. I didn't know what that stood for. It was in the presentation.
Yes, through the chair. So SRSA is the Seldovia Recreational Service Area,
Oh.
and it's through the borough, and they oversee the SOC. The SOC
Oh.
is just a part of that recreational area board.
And you'll notice it on your property taxes when you get them. I think it's $75 per 100,000.
I have to double check, but I think it is a 0.75 mill rate.
Yeah. So, as far as goal 3 goes, yeah, I didn't give the city very high grades because I don't see anything diverse about what the Seldovia is doing as far as the fishing fleet. I know we have the boat haul out, and some boat storage, but other than that, I don't really see what the city's doing. And as far as I don't know about the youth mentoring culture myself. I haven't seen any. I see all the notices that SVT puts up about the different programs they offer to the youth, but I don't see that the city does very much of that. I know, and I don't know if it's in fact in effect or not, but I know at one time the city council was considering a plan to give businesses a break on their utility bill, on their water and sewer rate, if they were open so many months of the year. I don't know if that ever passed the council or not. My business happens to be open all year, so it wouldn't apply to me. But I know that they were trying to encourage some businesses to open a little earlier and close a little later. But I don't know if that moved forward or not. Kathleen?
So I guess the nice things first is that I know, again, the support of the pavilion and SOC have a lot of opportunities for the people and the kids around town. I know that I don't know about Mr. Hawkins, but I know previously the police department and the fire department would with the preschool, and they were open to, the younger kids in the preschool coming in and learning about what a fireman does and what a police officer does. And they also used to do a bike rally. Of course, with COVID, I don't know if that was done this year. But the bike safety bike rally, as they called it, was a very positive thing, I think, that the city did for the kids. I'm hoping that with COVID opening things back up, hopefully that will start with the next year. Hopefully it will be done again. I know that the city does have a pretty low cost of business license, which is very helpful to somebody maybe just starting like a farmer's market or something small. So that's nice. But in terms of growth, I think that it's very hard to grow a business here because of utility costs and housing. It's hard to live here. I know that the city does own some properties. When the city is surveying their assets, I'm wondering if they're going to be looking at the properties they own and possibly looking at getting some housing on there. I believe I talked to someone saying that you guys have 5 lots on where you guys, your storage area, and then there's 5 lots beside it that are currently empty, and that might be a place for some housing, tiny houses, unit houses, mobile trailer park. Because as someone here moving here to start a business or just be part of the workforce, there's not a lot of low cost living. So I don't know if the city is looking at maybe opening a mobile home park or doing some low cost living, but I definitely think that when you guys assess your properties, if that could just be like a bug in the back of the mind. And somebody also mentioned tourism, the church. I know some cities around Alaska have gotten grants for the renovation and upkeep of their churches as a historic, so maybe like a historic society who might help maintain the boardwalk and the church and be in contact with the Russian church about possibly letting tours and things go around the church and learn a bit about Seldovia's history and the history of the church in Seldovia. I believe Cindy Mom was trying to get that up and running. I didn't know if the city was working with her on that. But yeah, if we could give some of these places like a historic plaque, a plaque saying that this is a historic place and it is, give it breaks on either property tax or utilities, that might encourage the upkeep of these places and make it attractive to tourism and touring groups. So yeah, that's it.
I also wanted to mention that Seldovia has seen a couple new businesses open or get up and running recently, but I think that's almost in spite of what the city's doing, as opposed to because of supporting creativity and entrepreneurship. Any other comments?
Oh, I'm sorry. So
I think though one of the things that we should mention is that the city, and I'm not sure if no, this was workforce, sorry. Well, it'll come up in another area. Did you want to say something, Kathleen?
yeah, in the workforce and housing, I know there's been a couple, there's a couple businesses in town, or individuals who are developing their land, and these places are, I believe, just outside the city limits. And I was wondering if the city was in contact with those those individuals and business owners about possibly, because they're talking about building possible housing in these areas, about possibly joining the city. Just because I believe that there would be the initial cost of putting in water and sewer and hookups and things, 10, 15 years down the road, we would have that tax from those places. They would get the utilities and the positive parts of being part of the city, and the city would get that tax, because there's a lot of people that live out the road, and the city's not, I mean, the city doesn't maintain those roads, of course, and everything, but the city's also not getting the tax from them except sales tax when they come in to buy groceries. So I think that, and also people moving here, if we want a workforce and businesses to move here, they need to find a place to live where, I mean, I wouldn't live in a place where I had to deal with a well. I'd much rather buy housing within the city limits. And because it's just a lot simpler. And I think that if we are not looking at possibly expanding, then we've kind of hit a wall in what the city can accomplish. So, I mean, either apartment buildings or expanding our size is I think something that city has to look at in getting people to move here and open businesses, just convenience sake. So yeah, that was all.
Any other comments?
Right, something like expanding, say, the utilities, are there grants and stuff out for that? Does the city absorb all that cost? I wonder, it's maybe the state or the feds could, help expand it.
So through the chair, when a city annexes property,
Yeah.
they can sometimes levy a local improvement district. And so the city will front the cost of the development, but then it's put on the property as a lien or an assessment. And so that's one way of doing it, is having an assessment district for the property. But we would have to have a study probably done of our water and sewer system, because how old the distribution system is, and who knows what an extension could do to the system, pressure, movement, gravity. It, unfortunately, our system is so old and not in the best shape that more significant improvements could cause an error down the line, so to speak, in the distribution system.
Well, when they put the new one up there on the hill up there, I went to that presentation, and they said their capacity could be increased, I think at least double if they wanted to. When they put the system in, they put it in with that in mind of the growing thing. Now they might need another tank or something up there, but the system itself is ready to go as far as expansion.
Right. So it's not a comment regarding the water treatment plant itself, but more so the distribution system and how water and sewer would run through the city.
Right. Okay.
I know some major cities will do for the actual person who built the house, whether that's a business or an individual, they do between $5,000 to $10,000 hookup fee, which is crazy to me. And this is of course in richer areas, but that kind of helps offset the cost of what it costs the city to do that hookup. And maybe we could potentially look at doing hookup fees when someone builds a new house, and see what those are, to see if we could help offset the cost.
All right, we're halfway through. We have 3 more goals to go, so hang in there. Our next goal is goal number 4, focus area: maximize Seldovia's working and commercial waterfront. So our municipal dock is still in a condition to support ferry operations. We had the boat harbor design success, where we got money from DOT and the Denali Commission for the design, and then we improved the harbor. We continue to maintain boat haul out services. The value added building was constructed, however, unfinished and no tenant secured. Fuel sales are not city run, but we renegotiated the lease. There has been no significant maintenance done on city roads. City maintenance is needed for the boardwalk, and there could be discussion on how to improve the experience along the slough for walkers and the public. The scenic byway pavilion was constructed, but it needs maintenance, and we did have harbor kiosks installed to support tourism and enhance public use. We're going to be working on our first ever land use management plan this fall, and we could work on recognizing volunteers that maintain public parks. We're also, again, we're going to be working on the land use management plan, and that could help us in identifying the use of our assets, management, and disposal guidelines. We updated Title 18. We offer customer support and services to inquiring developers. However, staff have limited expertise and capacity for going over building and development projects. We do not have a variable property tax rate structure for businesses and residents. We also operate on a complaint received basis regarding enforcement issues. And we could explore policies, programs, and design guidelines that protect historic sites and local character because we don't have something like that in place. We do continue to advocate for the ferry system. We have worked with the chamber on marketing in the past, but there's no strategy for tourism developed. We also don't have a collaborative economic strategy in place. We made some improvements on telecommunications. We still need to help in win-win projects for increasing housing in the area. We became a sustaining member of SOS. We haven't worked on a waterfront truck route and secondary airport route. We have not built regional road connections, and we have not explored local energy security and fuel cost strategy. But we did have a Seldovian apply for federal energy technical assistance through a grant on behalf of the city so that we could start that conversation, and we did not receive it. So that again is goal number 4, maximize Seldovia's working in commercial waterfront. These are the 3 components that make up that goal. And I just shared with you evidence or feedback on the actions, policies, synergies, and contingencies that were suggested to accomplish this goal. So take 3 minutes to rank and we'll check back in. All right, are we ready to share our ranking?
Okay, and so this time we're going to start with Allison.
All right. I ranked 3, 2, and 3.
And I ranked 1, 4, and 3. And Kathleen?
2, 2, and 3.
I gave it 2s right across the board.
Kind of interesting the way we're all seeing things slightly differently. And I'm going to ask you for your comments first, Allison.
Well, it seemed like Rachel's presentation showed that there was still a lot of work to be done in all these actions and policies and synergies and contingencies. But yet I'm just having trouble taking that and applying it to these 3 statements. So I'm having a hard time doing that conversion. Anyhow, that's all I can say is I had to pick a number and I don't know.
Well, understanding that this is all new for you
Yes.
and this is your first meeting, we're going to cut you a little slack.
Okay. I do think it is the working waterfront nature, except for the fact that there's that big, I guess that's the value added building that's it's vacant. And so it's not working there, it's vacant. So that's a negative sort of scar. And then, so I don't know what are the commercial industrial districts, but I know there are some. Dean Lentz's place?
Yes.
Is that's all residential, I think, and it's right on the waterfront. Upper
No,
and lower?
no, we'll get into that a little bit
Okay,
more.
because there's some
Okay.
historic probably precedences and whatever. Anyhow, I don't know where the districts are. Commercial and industrial districts, I guess, for that. would
Okay, I
apply.
think that in your packet, you'll get a zoning code
Okay,
and then you'll be able to see where
Yeah.
the different districts are.
right.
And as far as that goes, I don't think that the city is managing its own waterfront property very well. I gave it a 1 because I know we need some parking, but there's all that area down by the harbor itself that's just being used for parking. And that parking is for people going out on boats, and boats are taking them out of the city. So I don't know if we really need all that long-term parking taking up the harbor space. I know that the city has bought those 2 kiosks and has put them in that area. And hopefully that will bring in some commercial value to the city. But also the property up past by the boat ramp, all that's just vacant land that's, people park their trailers on there all summer. And I don't see that being used for anything or generating any kind of capital for the city. What I do want to say that I think the city has done a lot of work on is the industry and commercial uses along the water's edge. They finally have a program that they're enforcing as far as being business properties along the water, or in the cases where there can be some residential use on the 2nd floor. But it's my understanding that the properties are supposed to be at least 51% commercial. And there are a couple properties that are not compliant, and I think the city needs to do some work on that. I know that Allison just mentioned Mr. Lent's property, which up until this time has had some tenants in the bottom as renters. And I do believe he had that a certain amount of the property along the waterfront can be used for apartment rentals, but that they do need to they need to apply to the city and get permission to do that. And I think, what is there? They're only allowed 2 rental properties, or is it 3 rental properties along the commercial police?
Yeah, Madam Chair, it is 3% of the district, which equals 3 properties.
3 properties are allowed to have a full-time rental as part of the commercial use. But for informational purposes, Mr. Lent's property has recently sold, or is in the process of being sold, closing. And I don't think I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but that there will be a more of a commercial presence in that property in the near future.
Yeah, I heard that was originally going to be a bank when they built it.
Long ago.
Yeah.
I heard just recently that it was a bank for like one day and it got robbed. That ended the bank. That might be just folklore, but that's what I heard.
Is the robber still at large?
I don't think so. Anyhow, let's see, where was I? Anyhow, I think that the city is really taking steps to enforce they just changed the name of the district from commercial marine and went to commercial business, because the feeling was that businesses didn't just need to be marine oriented to survive along the waterfront, but that they definitely wanted to keep this as a business district to promote business, promote tourism, and to provide a place for people to start a business. And I think there are just 1 or 2 properties now that are not compliant.
Yeah. Sorry, Madam Chair, there are a couple of properties that are not in use. But as for buildings that are in use, they all have a compliant use for them.
Okay. And I think 1 property is for sale. And I don't know what's going on with that warehouse there, but I don't know if that's up for sale or not. Anyhow, so therefore I gave the city a 4 on that. I think that it really has done a lot of work on that in the recent year or 2. And also with the fact of number 3 for the next ones, because the residents have to be subordinate to the businesses. And I think there is a plan there is a plan in place that if that doesn't happen, that the property owners can be fined. Kathleen.
Yes, I did agree with you on the fact that I know that the city has done a lot of work in trying to get the codes changed and things so that the waterfront is more tourist friendly and commercial, in that that's where all the businesses are, and that it's not just people living there and having things closed down in the summer, which doesn't help any of the businesses to have a bunch of closed businesses around them. My 2 things are are related in the fact that they the dredging of the harbor and also the dam, just because I know when we had that massive drought, I think 2 years ago, that affected the waterfront businesses because they were having to ask there was pressure on them to not have people coming in. They were having cancellations. And that was the end of their summer, was kind of ruined financially, just because we haven't dredged our dam in forever. And so we had that really bad drought. I mean, we had the drought for a variety of reasons that I know the city worked hard to fix as quickly as possible. And their support of the businesses was very apparent. But I think going forward, we can maximize the businesses as much as possible. But again, if our utilities fall by the wayside and they get in the way of businesses and their ability to do business, it's not going to really, in the long run, make a big difference. So I think that we're on a good place. I think there has been a lot of forward movement. But I think that's kind of the thing that needs to be looked at and to continue that forward movement is the utilities and the infrastructure that is supporting those businesses.
And
Roger.
sorry, were you not done?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, Roger.
Oh, I know, I remember us talking about on the far end over there where the commercial business, whatever it was, stopped, and then there's a few there that weren't really run as businesses. Did that ever get resolved?
I think I can answer that. There are, as Heidi mentioned, there's one that's for sale.
Right.
So and there's nobody living there, so it's vacant at the time.
Right.
I don't know what's being done with the warehouse there, with the one property right next to the pavilion. I don't know what the status of that is as far as being run as a business or not. And then there's one other house down there, and that person is operating a business, a computer IT business out of his home.
Right.
I don't happen to know if it's 51%, but I do know that there is some kind of a business operation there.
Right. Yeah, I just remembered remember we were discussing it a couple of weeks ago. That's about all I had.
So it looks like we're ready to move on to goal number 5.
All right. Goal number 5, enhance tourism. And a lot of these, I'm assuming, are starting to sound familiar. So we have a dock that can support the ferry. We improved the boat harbor. We renegotiated our lease with Fuel and Lube, but we don't have fuel sales. We have not done significant maintenance on our roads. We still need to maintain our boardwalk, our historic boardwalk, and improve the experience of people using the right-of-way along the slough. We constructed the Scenic Byway Pavilion, which needs maintenance, and then we installed the harbor kiosks. The city could work with the chamber to promote recreational assets. Council has moved to secure a Tidelands lease with the state for Jackaloff Dock. The city will be working on its first ever land use management plan this fall. The city has not made any progress on acquiring public property to protect local attractions. The city could improve supporting and honoring its local volunteers. Again, the city will be working on its first ever land use management plan. We were successful in updating Title 18 Our staff can offer customer support and services to developers, but we have limited expertise and capacity for doing so. We haven't adopted a variable property tax structure. We operate on a complaints received basis for enforcement. We still need to explore policies, programs, and design guidelines that protect historic sites and local character. We do not have an active program to reduce environmental risk. We continue to advocate for the ferry. We have not made any improvements or upgraded the Seldovia Street, Anderson Way, Jackaloff Bay Road connection. The city has not enhanced backcountry access within the past 7 years. We do support the chamber, or have in the past, for marketing. We do not have a collaborative economic strategy in place with local groups and residents. We have made improvements to telecommunications very recently. We could improve our relationship to NOAA better. We have not worked on a waterfront truck route and secondary airport route. We have not built regional road connections, and we still maintain Jackaloff Dock. A lot of information there. Let me know if you want me to go back to any slide. But again, this goal is enhanced tourism. And this goal has 4 facets. And what we presented to you was feedback on the actions, policies, synergies, and contingencies associated with that goal. So take a few minutes to think that through, and we'll check back in a minute. All right, if the commissioners are ready, we are ready to hear your rankings.
Okay, I guess it's my turn to start first. I gave it a 2, a 1, a 1, and a 2. Kathleen?
1, 1, 2, 2.
Kathleen, we can't hear you.
1, 1, 2, 2.
You have gotten really quiet.
Oh, my battery's dying. Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
Just, it sounds like you're whispering.
Commissioner Gruber, did you say 1122?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have a plug-in for your computer, or is it going to go?
I have to go grab it. I'll be back in just a minute. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, and with that, let's just take a 5-minute recess until she comes back.
Kathleen, we were just taking a few minutes break here.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Are you up and running?
Yep.
Okay, I still don't hear you very well. Is your? The only reason why I mentioned it is you were coming across really, really loud, and then all of a sudden it just went way down, so.
Yeah, I plugged it in and boosted it up so the fans could get it cool, but I don't know.
Maybe she can speak closer to the mic or something. Maybe.
Can you get a little closer to your microphone?
I mean,
A little bit.
can you hear better?
Yeah, that's a little better.
Okay.
Okay, anyhow, it's your turn.
My notes were just about again about the Parks and Rec, and a positive thing is that I think that people can get info about the city and the opportunities when they call the city. I know that the city has really been improving its online presence and the information given to the public online. I guess my low scores came from there hasn't been a lot of work on this in the last 7 years, but I know in the last year there has been work in the online presence, in getting pamphlets and information out there. But in investing in things, I feel that things are built and things are established, but they're not well maintained. As you spoke to, the pavilion needing maintenance, roads needing maintenance, the parks and the trails need maintenance. That just that things are there, but they're not kept clean and well maintained in the best way, and that maybe a Parks and Rec or more of a working with some of the entities would improve those being maintained throughout the year and in subsequent years.
Okay, Roger.
Okay, were we still voting or what? We already
No,
voted? We already voted, huh? All right. Yeah, I always thought the trails have actually been, I think, pretty good. I mean, we have a windstorm every year, you know, and then blows down and stuff. It takes, you know, just for safety reasons, you just can't go out there and start bucking stuff apart. I think they do a pretty good job. They got signs about vegetation and different wildlife area on those trails and stuff. So I think they're doing a pretty good job there. I did have a question on the boat storage. The city owns that, right? And some of those boats have been there. I mean, it's almost like a museum when you drive by. Are you getting? Are they paying their rent still on those, or that? What's the story on that? Are they it just left there?
So through the chair, in 2019, the city removed a lot of those derelict vessels with the hope that we would significantly reduce what we had in there. There are still derelict vessels in the haul out area, and it requires attorney time, legal time, and advice on how to remove the vessels. So it's a work in progress.
Right. That would help visualize, you know, I mean, get some of that stuff cleared up. So that's about all I had on that one.
Allison?
Thank you. I gave the 4 because of the investments in the kiosks and the pavilion. So I thought that was a good showing that they were invested in, but I agree about the maintenance not being done is also needed there. And the rest of it is sort of just not really, it's just my best kind of, I don't know what to say about it. Yeah. I don't know that. I actually didn't really understand the last one. Seldovia coordinates tourist assets and programs with access schedules. Like that's when so the day boat comes in, you want to have things ready for those people. Is that schedules you're talking about? Ferry schedules. Tusty seems to have decent schedules. It's the kind of always comes in the middle of the night. Morning.
I don't think that the city can control that schedule
Right.
very much.
Yeah.
But the way that I looked at that, as far as coordinating with tourist assets and programs, the city, I don't know if they've done it yet, or usually happens around cleanup time or just before the city opens up and the ferry schedule starts, is that the city gets the benches out.
Okay.
The chamber bought the benches and some of those things, but the city like stores them for us in the wintertime and then brings them out. I don't know. I actually haven't gotten around the city that much, so I don't know if they're out yet or not. Trash cans are normally put out. That's some of the things that the city does. In the past, the city would help in some of the not so much the setup, but in helping the chamber with getting things ready for the 4th of July, which I don't know if it's been decided whether we're going to have a 4th of July this year or not. But in the past, they did assist with that. I don't know. I don't see a visitor-friendly walking routes at all in town. Tourists come into town, and of course, because we're off the road, and I don't know, they must think that we don't have vehicles. They just walk down the middle of the road. And, that could always present a hazard, but I don't really know a way around that. And we already talked about parks and public spaces. I do think that the pavilion has drawn a lot of great remarks and comments from people coming to the city. I know that there have been weddings there. There have been social gatherings. And it is a really very nice place. And it's, if it needs maintenance, I think that, I don't know, some of the fees that are gleaned from the rentals could be used for doing some of the maintenance. That building was put up through a grant. I thought that maybe the fees gleaned from, the rentals would be used for maintenance. And I guess my question is, what iconic features does the city have besides the church?
Madam Chair, if I may, I would say the boardwalk, but also when you're done with your comments, if we could visit back to Mr. Forsberg and Ms. Ryan, we did not get their numbers before their break.
Okay. That's right. I think that Kathleen's voice came out. So we will do that when we're done. So, so the fact that the boardwalk needs maintenance and we really don't have access to the church, Seldovia hasn't done much investment in its iconic features. Anyhow, my numbers were 2112. Roger, your figures were,
233 and another 3.
And I had 4232.
and Kathleen, you had 1122?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Roger, yours was, could you give me that again?
A 2 and then 3s after that.
and has everyone had a chance to speak to item 5? I think so. And so we can move on to item 6.
And thank you, City Clerk Gagel, for catching us on the numbers. It's kind of blurring together, so thank you. All right, and that says goal 5 on the top, but that's an error. It should really be goal 6. So hold in your minds goal 6. Focus area, respond effectively to changes in the economic climate. So the city could improve how it honors its local volunteers. The city is working on a asset use management disposal guideline policy document and our first ever land use management plan this fall. We have 2 interlocal service agreements. We have an agreement with the state troopers to provide public safety for community members outside of the city limits. And then we have a Barbara Heights Fire Department mutual aid agreement that I think came to fruition in either 2019 or 2020. We have supported the chamber for marketing in the past, but we don't have a comprehensive tourism strategy. We do not have a collaborative economic strategy in place with local groups and residents. And we have not explored local energy security and fuel cost strategy. And that is goal 6 for responding effectively to changes in the economic climate. So this goal has 3 facets to it, and that they were connected to those actions, policies, synergies, and contingencies you just saw. So take a few minutes to rank how the city has been doing, and we'll check back in.
Before we do that, could you just go back to your slide? And when you talk about local energy security and fuel cost strategy, the grant was for what?
So we had a Seldovian apply for a grant that would help the city, and not just the city public facilities, but also residents identify different ways they could improve their energy efficiency. And so that way then we could be more resilient with both our pocketbook as well as what the level of energy we're using for the environment, for environmental concerns.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it looks like we're ready for the ranking.
Okay. Roger?
I gave it a 3, a 2, and a 2.
Allison?
All twos?
And I gave it a 2, and a question mark because I have no idea where we are with that. And Kathleen?
All threes.
So Roger, do you want to start?
Yeah, over the years, since I've been here, there's been a few problems with disputes with different property owners, and, by the time they get done with lawyers and everything, it got pretty expensive in different situations, so that's definitely something that should be worked on. Try to eliminate a dispute to becoming a bigger problem. So that's about all I had on that.
Allison?
Yeah, I guess I probably should have done a question mark for that last one as well, because I don't know, how they minimize debt, but there was a lot of these things that this actions, policy, synergies that weren't done. And so there's a lot more to be done. I guess that's why I gave it the lower rating.
Answering these three areas was a little difficult. I don't know how well Seldovia monitors economic conditions, but I don't see it as being very flexible. And as far as the fiscal strategy to the fluctuations in the external economy, I think that probably over the past year with the COVID, they've done more than I've seen them do in previous years, in that they did apply for the CARES funds or whatever funds were out there so that they could help the businesses, especially so that they could cut water and sewer rates. That was helpful. And so in that case, that's why I gave them such a high mark, because in the last year, I think that they've done better than they've done in the previous 7 years. But I guess my other question is, what is Seldovia's debt? Do we have any debt?
So to answer that question, I would think of it more like, managing our fiscal strategy so that we can be flexible with the external economy. We basically have no savings for general fund operations. We have a little bit of savings for the water, the sewer, and the haul out and the dock. Our harbor has been in a deficit this will be the 8th year of being in a deficit. And so when we think about minimizing debt, all of our infrastructure is getting old and has replacement costs or maintenance needs. And so I would say that we haven't, personally as an administrator, done the best job at minimizing debt, because it could just take our grader from 1984 going out, which is valued at about $300,000 to replace, and suddenly we're in debt. So we have been operating in the margins, and we're about to go below the horizon if anything significant were to go bad. And I think in order to minimize debt, because it's bound to happen if we don't figure out how to start building up a reserve for city operations, we need to become very fluent in bonds and bonding out and amortizing costs, so that not just the current generations of Seldovians pay for the item, but it's across the life of the bond. So multiple generations of Seldovians contribute to that cost. So as of now, we don't have debt technically, but it will just take one thing basically to put us into debt.
So the other question I have is, and I don't remember what it's called. And I do believe that Seldovia has money put away from a land transaction that was done way back years and years ago, that there was some money put in this permanent fund, basically for the acquisition of new properties. What is the status of that fund right now?
So we received $500,000 in 1994 through a land conveyance with Seldovia Native Association. And if you think of it this way, we've had that $500,000 for about 30 years. And right now that fund balance is $540,000. So we've been withdrawing all the interest off of that fund to sustain city operations. And so we would basically be going below $500,000 if it wasn't for the state providing funding, community assistance program funding this year.
What's the outlook for that fund? I mean, the community assistance fund, is it?
For FY22, I spoke with Senator Stevens and Representative Stutz's office, and they're confident, but can't say with 100% certainty, but they're confident we're going to receive the full amount of that money for our community, which is almost $76,000. But every year that is a funding source where the state says we're going to cut it in half, we're going to get rid of this program. And so it is very risky for the city to be balancing its budget with that money, because if they cut it, then it's an instant hole in our city operations.
And so the city is really under the gun where you spend your money. Because water, sewer are things that we have to keep running all the time. Can't shut the water off. Can't repair, I mean, you can't not repair sewer problems or water line problems. Lights, that part of it, or some of it, comes from HEA. But yeah, the city has done some things to, I know that they've done some things to cut back some of those bills. I think they did a whole refitment on the harbor and went to LEDs a couple of years ago. I guess my question is, how much has that actually saved us anything or not? I don't know if you have that right.
I don't, but it's a great question that we should get data for council on.
I'm surprised that council hasn't asked for that data. And what about the street lights? The city pays for the street lights?
Yes.
And are those LEDs or not?
They are in the process of being, so the previous city manager went to HEA and talked about or discussed an LED conversion plan, and the cost was not conducive to what the city could afford at the time. So HEA did state that they were in the process of updating all of their LED lights naturally anyways. So as a light goes out, they are replacing it with an LED. That's why if you go around at night, and it's kind of hard right now with the light, but in the winter, if you go around, you'll notice some lights are orange and some are yellow. It's because they just replaced, I think it was more than 12 lights this last winter with LED, and it's a slow conversion, but those lights actually go out pretty fast. So in the next couple of years, we should see them switched over.
And these have been retrofitted with LEDs?
That's correct. All of the city buildings are now on LED.
Oh, that's good.
And is there any kind of timer set up on outside lights? as far as on city buildings, or do we just keep our outside lights on all night, or?
That's a great question. We had a council member, Councilmember Payton asked that question, and talking with our public works staff, they have photoreceptors. A lot of our lights have photoreceptors that are broken. And so the light just stays on all the time. And so it's on our maintenance list to go through and look at all of our outdoor lighting. But part of it is because the photoreceptors are broken on the lights that you see outside.
And I only mention this because I didn't notice it before, and maybe it's always been this way, but I've noticed that the lights in front of the fire department are like on all night. Are they supposed to be on all night?
That's because of, I want to say, so operator Cameron told me that one of the sensors was being blocked by a snow pile, and the snow pile was reflecting light onto that sensor, keeping it on. And then there's also a weird sensor inside the fire hall that somehow is connected to that light. And there's something needs to be fixed with that, but that caught our eye as well. So it's on our list.
Okay.
A lot of the stuff is on the list of things to look at.
And I'm sorry to mention these little things, but it's just that it just popped into my mind.
Well, and if that bulb is only burning, say, 20 watts as opposed to 200 watts, you can literally leave it on, it's.
Right, but I don't think that those outside lights LEDs?
Yes, they are.
They are? Well, then,
That makes a difference, big
Yeah.
difference.
hopefully.
Okay, so I know there's a lot of things, but in terms of being able to respond effectively to changes in the economic climate, my opinion as the administrator is that we are not in a good position at all to respond effectively, and the state of Alaska as well is in a similar situation. And grants are drying up. So it's really, the city needs to take an inward look and think about what expectations for services does the public have? What can we afford to continue to provide to the community? And what do we need to reduce or eliminate while we work on building up a reserve so that we can weather storms, economic storms better?
Comments from Kathleen?
The reason I put all threes for the city is because I feel that though these are not all accomplished, I believe that I have seen the city continually working on these through the years. I know Roger mentioned the legal costs and fees. The city has been updating its codes. They have been putting the information out on the internet, so it's easier for people to get that information. So they're less likely to get legal action against them because they have clear, concise information that cannot be nitpicked as much as it used to be. We weren't holding the codes we had, and the codes we had were very confusing. So I think that the city has done a lot of work on that, and I appreciate it. I know it still is in progress. And also I know that the city has been, just a few years ago, there was an economic study to help us get a grant. I know the city has been working on grants and looking for grants. I know there was talk about working with a place in Arizona to get low flow toilets, sinks, showers, not just for the city itself, but for the people, so that it could reduce water consumption and hopefully cost there. I know there was a grant looking at doing glass recycling through the city so that we could use that sand from the glass on the roads instead of buying soil and putting that on the roads. So I know the city has been working on grants and looking at grants. But as you said, there's no guarantee of getting them. And the whole nation is in kind of a bind right now. Supposedly, I have heard that the Biden administration is trying to get monies for sustainable energy, trying to get the nation on a more sustainable energy and green energy path. So maybe that money might open up there to improve our lights, improve our water, possibly even improve our energy. But the city can't rely on getting those, and the city can't rely on those monies actually becoming a reality. So I do agree. Our residents, a lot of the residents are not great off financially, and neither is the city and neither is the state. So I think that it's just maintaining what we have and knowing that I believe that the city has been really trying and making strides in the last 7 years to improve. But it all comes down to money. So that's all I had to say.
Any other comments?
I've got one. It just seems as though our economy through this plan is really tied to tourism and fisheries. And it seems though as though there could be a broader scope that is looked at, that it couldn't, should be beyond just those two. As the technology or the wireless, whatever that gets improved, then industries can locate wherever because they have that communication. So that's really key to have that improved, to bring in, let's diversify a little bit beyond those two.
One of the things that I think this pandemic has done is shown us that we can do a lot of things from home that we thought we had to go into an office to do. And I do think that with the new tower, and from what they said, they've already have a contract with Verizon. That's why they're putting the tower up. But that they've also had queries from AT&T and GCI. And so hopefully with those increased communications, and I understand that the internet, not just through ACS, but Hot with Spots or Spit and Spots. I'm sorry, I don't have their name correct, but that they offer pretty good internet connections also. And I do believe that there has been I don't want to say an influx, but there has been a number of people that have moved to town that are going to be able to do their jobs from on the internet. And that's going to be good because up until a couple of years ago, the only people moving to town were retired people. And that wasn't helping the tax base at all because they were getting senior citizen discounts. And so they weren't paying much in the way of property taxes. So we need some people in town who can help support the community. And so do you have any final comments, or do you want to say, whoa, we've graded them, we've really graded you guys harshly, or?
Well, the plan will be, so we're going to consolidate this information that the commissioners have come up with on economy, and then we'll do that after every meeting. And then it'll be provided to council with the hope that the Planning Commission could present in September. And up next, you're going to be discussing transportation, and it'll be presented in the same way, but you guys will be given these slides ahead of time, so that way we will not go through each slide and read over each action and contingency and synergy. You will have Planning Commissioner homework, where you have to grade and write your comments before the meeting. So that way then we can make really good, efficient use of discussion time together. And I will not be at your next meeting. Unfortunately, it coincides when I will be out of the office, but we'll have the materials ready for you. And then City Clerk Gagel can walk you through or facilitate at least getting your score and any comments that you have at that meeting. So I think that's how I wanted to end it. Is it's great that we're looking at it now, and having an annual peek at this plan can put things into consideration. Like Commissioner Ryan said, that it would be nice to think through economy other than tourism and fisheries. You know, it'd be nice to expand the scope, and that could be a recommendation that's incorporated into an amended comprehensive plan. So it's good that we're taking a peek and coming up with new ideas, and I really appreciate the Planning Commission's time on helping council look at this, because you guys help analyze the development and construction and future of our community in terms of infrastructure. So that's how I'll close, Chair Carluccio.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to item 2, ordinance 21-XX, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, amending Title 17, Buildings and Construction. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So at the last meeting, this ordinance was presented and discussed, and a part of that discussion was that everywhere that it stated that Seldovia Planning and Zoning Commission should be updated to just state the Seldovia Planning Commission for the code for Title 18. That's what this commission is called. And we also discussed that the application fee should be in the fee schedule instead of in the code, and that 100 square feet could be removed because that could also be changed in the fee schedule in the future if needed. If it wasn't in the code, then it wouldn't require 2 changes. And I apologize because somehow my packet got out of order in the middle of the building permit application on page 28. I wanted to provide show you guys that section of the fee schedule that shows that the building permit is actually already in the fee schedule. So if or when this ordinance did take effect, it's already covered there. And that basis is covered. Other than that, what really brought this about was that the date change under the time limit on page 22 is now 7:30 is what it stated. And then we talked about the difficulty of adopting by reference the different building codes that said Code Council Building Reference Books. As staff, I was having to go back to the previous version of this ordinance to look at what those books were. So now that language is updated to say the most current edition of whichever book it was that we follow and the state follows. Most of them are international, but the electrical code, for instance, because electric is different all over the world, is the national code. And with that, covers those amendments. But we also got into the discussion, and this was in your guys' laydown, your little 1-pager that I want to point out. And it's on the laydown, so you can just look at it. But in this code, under building permits, item D. Oh, sorry, item B. No, I should say, I put the wrong one in here. I was going way too. No, it's the right one. I'm sorry. Item B, it specifies that if the plan or description of the proposed construction is approved by the Seldovia Planning Commission or the city manager and would not violate any ordinance or regulation of the city or any governmental agency, a building permit will be issued. Well, Madam Chair pointed out at the last meeting and previously in her discussion with the city manager, that Title 18 specifies under building permit review that no permit shall be issued under Chapter 11.04 or Section 17.04020, which is building permits, without the application being first submitted to the city manager for its approval or rejection. If all requirements are met, the city manager may approve the application and the city office will issue a building permit. So I believe that's the discussion for tonight. I did put a copy of what we're working on for the building permit with some of the updates that we've discussed to follow in the packet. And again, I apologize, the fee schedule ended up in the middle of it really weirdly. But so those edits that we've talked about so far, but it still has the Seldovia Planning Commission as the person to initial off on some of those requirements that are in that application. And the building permit itself talks about the Seldovia Planning Commission's involvement. So with that, action requested is that the commission recommends a direction to the Seldovia City Council for an amendment to the Seldovia Municipal Code in regards to building permit approval. And I just bulleted out some of the options. I'm sure there's probably off the wall ideas out there that could be entertained, but basically it's who do you want to approve the building permit?
Thank you. There's still no one from the public, so we don't need to have any public comment. And commission discussion, just as a little bit of background, there does seem to be some parts of the code that conflict. And when we started with the matrix last year that Heidi spent so much time on and did such a fantastic job on, it just starts bringing up other little things that are conflicting. And so we're just trying to resolve it so that we don't run into some of these legal battles that we've had in the past because things have been confusing, or because somebody's been doing something that they don't have permission to do, or that someone is not doing something that they're supposed to be doing. So when it comes to building permits, just as a little history, anytime someone had a building permit, it used to come before this commission at one of our meetings. And we would all sit here and we would look at it and we would either approve it or not approve it or request changes to it. But it was felt that since we only meet once a month, that there were some people that if they didn't get their building permit in time for our meeting, that they couldn't get a building permit for another whole month. And so in some cases, we found ourselves having special meetings just so we could look at the building permit. And then it was kind of a consensus of opinion that that could be handled by the city manager. And so we kind of gave over control of it to the city manager. But then the city manager came back and said, well, I know guys, but I'd still like you to kind of look it over. And so that's how we got into the situation where on the building permit on page, right, on page 31, where it used to be, it just would say planning commission member would have to look over this and initial all these things that they agreed with what was written on the building permit. And then they would put their name on it. But they really had no, according to the code, had no authority. And so what it comes down to is do you as a body want to take back some of that authority and say, yes, one of us should be involved in the building permit process? Or do you just want to say, city manager, it's yours? Discussion. Rachel's not smiling.
Well, as these members fluctuate, it probably should be, you know, like she's new, you know. I'm fairly new, a couple of years. It probably should be city manager. I mean, you know, we could still have a meeting and discuss problems with it or, you know, but I think the end game should probably be the city manager should sign for it myself.
Then again, too, the city manager is relatively new.
Right?
So I mean,
That's
let's face it, it's the city manager is going to approve it right now, but it's the city clerk who's going to go through and make sure everything, you know, is aligned and agrees with the code. And then the city manager is going to review it. But what I'm saying is, do you think that it should be a joint venture? That it should be the city, just the city manager, or should it be the planning commission or a planning commission member and the city manager?
I have no problem with both, really, I guess.
I think that just speaking from past experience, I mean, as new as this, and just to avoid legal issues, we've had some pretty interesting city managers in the past, like really interesting. And I wouldn't feel comfortable with any of those guys having approved building permits, quite frankly. They were crazy. And I think just so the city can protect itself a little bit, if, you know, 5 years down the road, you decide to leave and we get some new guy in and he turns out to be a wackadoo, I think that having the commission at least look at building permits and initial to say, yes, this is all goes with the code, this is all above board, we would support it. Just by the commission having a say in it, it protects the city a little bit in the chance that we get a really inept city manager in the future, and then we have legal issues because they approved something that they shouldn't have approved. And if the planning commission had looked at it, we would have had that fail safe. And that's just why I think it should be a work hand in hand with the commission and the city manager.
I'd agree with that. It would seem that commissioners would recommend what they feel is the right decision, but the final decision would rest with the city manager. That's, I guess, how I would see it. That there would be a track record. That's like, if the city manager disregarded whatever the commission said, at least we have that on record.
Yeah, I think it would help the city cover their butts.
Yeah, I have no problem with it being a joint issue. And I agree that that maybe 2 or 3 eyes that look at the same building permit as opposed to just one set of eyes, it's probably a good idea. And to that end, I think though that if we're going to say that then we have to go back and look at Title 17 is exactly how how it should be worded. But also on this building permit application review checklist, maybe there should be 3 columns. And it should be applicant, planning commission. I don't know if you want to write city manager or city office. Because if in fact the city manager is going to have the responsibility to sign the building permit along with the commission member, but the city manager doesn't actually review everything item, and if the clerk is going to be doing that review, then the person who did the reviews initials are the one that should be on the checklist.
And I like that idea, and I like it maybe being city office because the city manager is the final authority. They should be doing a review. And the way I know we talked a little bit about on the phone about how we are trying to up our building permit procedures in the office. So I actually created a checklist for myself, just a handwritten checklist in the building permit that we're reviewing right now. That went off of those requirements along others and wrote up notes to each thing and then handed that to the city manager because she should be reviewing or they should be reviewing what I'm seeing anyway. So maybe it should still be them as approving but I'm providing the notes.
Well, I would think that however the city wanted to do that, would probably be agreeable with us. But I do think that, yes, in fact, we probably should be on there and, one of us should look it over. And basically, the only thing that we're responsible for in a building permit is that we follow the guidelines in our code. And that's easy enough to follow just by looking at Title 18. And if it's a residence, if it's going in the residential district, this is what it has to be. If it's going in waterfront commercial residential, this is what it has to be. And it's all spelled out in the code. So it's not, the first couple you do are a little daunting, but after that, it's not that bad because right away you got to look at the setbacks and you got to look at lot coverage and you have to look at this or that. The building height. As far as the interior of the building, we do get a number of plans that have all the rooms drawn out and everything else, but we don't review that. It's the builder's responsibility to follow the guidelines, the international guidelines and the National Electrical Code. That's not our responsibility. But our responsibility is to make sure that their setbacks are right, that there's view at access points, that the height is no more than 28 feet, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Two parking spaces, things like that. So,
Madam Chair.
You've done a beautiful job here on Title 17, but I don't know if we can, based on our discussion, if we could even move forward on this tonight because there will be a number of changes.
Yes, I can bring it back one more time, and I was just going to suggest some language just to run it by you guys, and of course I can work on it further, but just hearing what you have to say, I think that the language could probably say something to the potential of, let me look back at Title 18. I jotted down a note saying that no permit shall be issued under Chapter 11.4 or Section 17.0420 without the application first being submitted to the city for its approval or rejections. all, and then have something that states in there, upon the review of the planning commission, the city manager can approve or reject all the requirements. So it's, you guys are just reviewing, but they're the final step.
Yes,
I think that's maybe what you guys are going for, is language that says upon review.
right.
And you guys can still sign off that you reviewed it, or not. If you don't like the decision, you could not sign it even, but that city manager's final signature would be the final say.
Is everybody in agreement on that? We don't need a motion, we just need a consensus.
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Okay. You're all in agreement?
Yep.
And I think there was just one or two little things in here. I saw in one of these places that it's still referred to P and Z. I don't, oh. I don't have it in front of me. I had it on my computer and I said, oh yeah, I'll remember exactly where this is. And I didn't, and I don't. Oh, here it is. Item 9 on page 26. It says, you're welcome to submit your questions to the Seldovia Planning Commission at their monthly meetings while still in the planning phases of your project. P and Z would far rather, and I think you can drop the word far. Actually, that whole sentence, you're welcome to submit your questions to the Seldovia Planning Commission at their monthly meetings. You're welcome to submit your questions to the city. And then if you know, you can, it would be up to you to call a planning commission member if you needed some additional input or thought. I think that's, I just don't think that sentence needs to be there, or even the last sentence. I just think you're always welcome to submit your questions in writing to the city or comment and review. But so is there anything else anybody else has to say about Title 17 or the building permit application process?
Chair Carluccio, may I?
Sure.
So something just to add as a closing remark to having administration and the planning commission review building permits is I feel that as staff, we don't necessarily have the expertise to review more complex building permits. That's why we defer to the international code of this or the national standards for that. And we expect the developer to know those standards. And so that's in a way shunting or preventing the responsibility and liability with that decision to fall on the city. However, there are ways that cities address those issues by contracting with a third-party planning firm where they can review your code and review more complex building and development proposals and give professional advice as to if it's an appropriate construction or not. So let's just say Seldovia 10 years from now, there's a massive infill and high density, and we have people cramming in on the slough, and we're back to the $2,000 to $3,000 level population range. It could be advantageous for the city to contract with a planning firm to help us with more advanced proposals. So I'm not saying we need to think about that now, but just putting that down in the record, because the city does not have the level of expertise that other first-class cities typically have for reviewing development and construction in city limits.
I would say especially if someone wanted to come in and build a multifamily complex or hotel or apartment building, townhouses.
Do they have, when somebody's building here, is there a building inspector that comes through and okays everything as the job proceeds?
The only thing that the city does, I believe it's in the code, is that during the building process, that the city manager is responsibility to go out and make sure that that the building is within the setbacks and the height of the building. Because those are the things that we control or that we have standards for. As far as the interior of the building, there are, if you build a building with more than X number, and I'm not sure if it's 4 or 5 apartments, it does have to have a fire marshal approval. And certain commercial structures, but like with a building, a 2-family house or a 3-family house, you don't need to go through the fire marshal. And as long as it's not on the Tidelands or anything, and you don't need approval from the River Center or from
Army Corps.
Pardon?
Army Corps.
Army Corps of Engineers, then we're just concerned with the outside structure and if it meets our code. We've never had a building inspector, to my knowledge, in town.
That would probably fall to an insurance company that was going to insure that building or whatever.
Or a mortgage company,
Yes.
that they may want, certain standards to be met, and they may send somebody out.
Right.
So is there any more discussion on Title 17? Anybody else have any thoughts or ideas on it? Or the building permit application?
I'm not sure where this fits in, but I know in other places I've lived, if there was a new development being proposed, there would be actual postings on site saying this is something that's coming up for consideration, so that I guess you send something out to residents of the area, but this is for any passerbyers would see, if this is an area they're kind of like, then they would notice that there's something being like this, the antenna or the cell tower that was being proposed. You kind of have forewarning that there's something being proposed because you see the sign.
Okay, I do
Yeah.
believe that with that, according to code, anybody who lives within 300 feet has to be notified by mail.
Right, but this would notify
And,
more than
but
those.
also, I do believe that they posted, did they post like in the city office and the post office? And is there a board downtown?
At the multipurpose building for the conditional use permit, yes, but we do not post for a building permit, no.
But they are supposed to post a building permit once they get it, correct?
I will have to review the code on that.
On site, you're talking.
They're supposed to
Yeah.
have it on site, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if we specify that it needs to be posted, so I'll double check the language on that.
Okay. Any other comments on this? Seeing none, I think you have your direction, Heidi. So staff reports, please.
Yes, thank you. Short and sweet tonight. I just wanted to remind everybody so that we keep this on the radar that there is a upcoming training opportunity through our local government specialist still available. Commission had asked that we wait until we have the appointment of a few new planning commission members. So yay, we're thankful Allison's on, and maybe we'll get a few more here in the future. And then that would be a great opportunity to have them either Zoom in or come down. They've come down in the past, and now that there's traveling again, that could be the potential. And they would just do a full review of Title 18 and 17 and answer any questions. They're pretty good about helping out with those kind of things. And then the last one being that one new building permit was received for the month of April. So we've already had in quite a few this year, a few handful. It seems like a lot of developments happening locally, and that's exciting. But we're still on the review process of this building permit, and I'm sure it'll come across one of your guys' tables here shortly.
Okay, item J, none. Comments of the public, there's no public, so there'll be no comments. Doesn't say anything about comments. Oh, I know what, we'll cover it under comments of the public. City manager, do you have any comments about the meeting tonight?
Thank you, Chair Carluccio. I'm just happy that I could participate in the review of the comprehensive plan with the commission, and to welcome Commissioner Ryan to joining the team. And I know that next month will be, I believe, Chair Carluccio's last meeting,
Yes.
and then possibly July, Commissioner Gruber will be hitting the ejection button, I think. So it's nice to at least experience what it was like with 4 members, and then starting in August, it sounds like we'll be down to 2.
And that will not be a quorum.
Right. So as commissioners, yes, please recruit. We have our only out of city limits seat filled. So please cheerlead and champion anyone within city limits to sign up for the Planning Commission. And that's it for this evening for me.
Thank you very much. Comments of the commission. Kathleen.
I just thank you, Allison, so much for joining, and I just want to say that I will be actually getting a letter off to Heidi, formally saying that I will be, my last meeting actually will be next month. So yeah, we're losing people pretty quick, and I just want to thank you all so much for everything. And I've had a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed this. And next month's going to be a little sad, but I hope we get some new members.
Roger.
Yeah, thanks, Allison, for signing up. It's good to see realty is getting bought up around here, so water gets turned on and get a few more dollars in the kitty there. We were mentioning about tourism and fishing around here. Also, I do think as far as older people moving in, there's more services to, they help old people, as far as more jobs and stuff, even in
Older.
that. Yeah.
The word is older, not old.
Okay. But, I think there's possibilities there as far as development too, there's all kinds of programs and people need assistance and stuff. So I'm hoping that, that industry could even grow a little bit,
That's true. Allison.
I didn't realize it was such a sinking ship here I was joining, so I'm glad that I'm here to help prop it up, and I will be working on getting the few people I do know. I'll try to recruit more, but I'm glad to be here, and it's really interesting. Hopefully I'll figure this out by next month a little more. what we were doing tonight.
Well, this is the first time we reviewed the comp plan, so it was, I think, eye-opening for all of us. I want to thank you, Allison, for joining. It's not a sinking ship. It's just time for new blood. And I want to thank Kathleen and Roger and yourself for attending tonight's meeting. I want to thank the city manager for coming to our meeting. We would hope to be able to see you, not me particularly, but hopefully you'll be able to join us at more meetings in the future. You are a member of this commission, although not a voting member. And it would be nice if we could get the city manager, not the city manager, the mayor to come to some of our meetings, because he also is a member of this commission, not a voting member. And Heidi, ever thankful to you for all the work you do and for putting up with my little notes to you and phone calls. And I think that that everything will be just fine. And with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
So ordered. I just love to do that.
Thank you.
Good night, Commissioner Gruber.
Night.